Welcome to Catholic Ed for All, your weekly insight into topics of special education in Catholic schools. My name is Dr. Raul Escarpio, and I invite you to join me each week as we learn how to be more inclusive in Catholic schools and continue to live out St. John Paul II's message of open wide the doors to Christ. Many thanks go out to RCL Benziger, who is generously sponsoring this podcast. RCL Benziger enriches the worldwide Catholic community by providing the most engaging and highest quality resources, programs, and services rooted in the rich and diverse tradition of the Catholic faith. And now, on to our show. On the show today, I am joined by Mrs. Barb Gillman, a third grade teacher at St. Margaret Mary School in Omaha, Nebraska. Hello, Barb. Welcome to the show and thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me on to talk about books.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a rare treat for all of us today. I am in the presence of Twitter royalty right here. This is Barb. This is the one that founded Catholic Ed Chat. So I am in the presence of greatness, and I thank you so much for being with us today, Barb.
Well, thank you.
So while we're at it, Barb, let's tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
All right, I am a wife, mother, and a Catholic school teacher, and I am beginning my 15th year of teaching at St. Margaret Mary's in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm teaching third grade, and as you said earlier, I'm a co-founder of Catholic Ed Chat, which is a Twitter chat for Catholic school teachers, and we will have 6 years in November of connecting and teach Catholic school teachers on Twitter, and I love connecting people, so it's awesome for me to do that.
Wonderful, wonderful, and you do a great job. I mean, she is a great follow on Twitter. Those of you that are around on Twitter, please follow her at Barb in Nebraska is her
That
Twitter
is
handle.
correct.
So
Yes,
Barb, let's get on with it. I keep hearing that you like books.
I do. And I love to connect people on Twitter, and I also love to connect people to books. So I love books, and I love reading, and I love reading middle grade books because they're so educational, and I don't have to worry about any scandalous parts. So that's where my focus is reading middle grade books.
Yes, but you also do something interesting with nail polish and books. Let's share right
I
now.
I do. For the past year, I've been matching my manicure to my book cover, and I also have a hashtag now, hashtag book to look, and I have been having so much fun with it. I started. One of my friends was doing this, and I thought this would be a great way to engage my class. And nail polish is super cheap. I can get any color for $1 or $1.99. And I paint my nails and I take a picture holding the book. And it is so fun when I walk in with a new nail polish and my students say, Mrs. Gillman, what are you reading now?
All right, you got that, folks. So, as of the recording right now, how many nail polishes to books have you matched?
I believe 58.
Wow, and this will air a couple months later, folks. So stay tuned. If you follow her on Twitter, you're going to get to see a whole lot more, hopefully, by then. So fantastic. Barb, I asked you to be on the show today because, as you know, we talk about Catholic special education and inclusion and how to best meet the needs of all learners. And you just provide a treasury of knowledge when it comes to books. I'd like to see if we can spend some time talking about some of your favorite books that deal with exceptional learners. And if you can share some of your favorites with the audience and what they're about, maybe the reading level and any good lessons that come out of those books. So whenever you're ready, just start with your first book.
All right. Well, when you first asked me to be on the podcast, the first book that came to mind was Wonder, and that's by R.J. Palacio. And it's an excellent book, and they made a movie out of it, but of
Yes.
course the book is better than the movie. But I love it because it's a little boy, 5th grade. He was born with facial deformities, and because of all the surgeries, he has never been able to go to regular school. And it deals with how his family and how his classmates deal with him and making him a part of the community. And it's an excellent book. I also am involved in this one activity called Global March Book Madness, and it was the winner this year. And that also tells how so many other children enjoy that book. So fifth grade on up is where I would say for that book.
I'm gonna agree there. I have a fifth grader going into sixth grade, and he read the book this year. He saw the movie, and he probably agrees with you 100%. He said, "Dad, the book was so much better than it was," and I said, "Son, you're gonna learn about that in every single book that you read in life. The book will always be better than the movies."
That's
So
true. And also the author came out with other books that have the viewpoint of the other students around there. And so that's good to continue reading. If you enjoyed that, check out her other books that go with it.
fantastic. We're gonna have to talk off the air about that one, and thank you for sharing that one. So, what can this book do for a typical fifth grade class, Barb, that may not be used to having kids with facial deformity in their
Well,
class?
as a Catholic school teacher, I'm always working on building community in my classroom and making a safe place for all students. So as you're reading this story, and it's a sensitive story, the students are feeling a little more comfortable sharing. And even if they're not sharing with their classmates, they share with their parents. And I always like to talk about that with the students. I'll say, if you want to talk with your parents about this, or as we're the next day when we're doing a read aloud, we'll say something like, and last time on Wonder, make it kind of like a commercial. Then the students can share and bring everybody up to date on where the book is. So using this book as a classroom building community book is really good.
Oh, you just reminded me of those old radio teases, and some of our audience is a little bit younger, but remember, and tune in next week.
Yes.
Will our
Yeah, you got to use
hero?
your radio voice.
Yeah, you got to use your radio. Tune in next week. Will our hero get off the railroad tracks, or things like that? But
That's right.
fantastic. All right, so everybody taking notes. We are starting with Wonder by R.J. You call it Palacio, but I'm Hispanic, so I'm going to say Palacio. And it
You
could be,
bet.
so that's the first one. Okay, give me another one, please.
All right. I am a participant with this project called the Global Read Aloud.
Okay.
And about 6 years ago, a teacher named Pernell Rip thought she could get together a group of teachers and we would all pick a book, one book that everybody would read. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. And this year, the book for the younger grade, which is 1, 2, and 3, so I will be reading this with my students in October, is called A Boy Called Bat by Elena K. Arnold. And what I liked about this is this little boy, his real name is Bixby Alexander Tam, but they
Love
call
it.
him Bat.
Love it.
he, he's on the autistic spectrum, and I really love how this book deals with how his family and the school works with him, and really gave me some ideas on how best to work with a child on the spectrum. And the little boy, his mom is a vet, and his mom brought home an orphaned skunk. The mom was killed in a car accident. So I'm sorry, the skunk mom.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, was
Thanks
killed in a
for
car accident.
clearing that one up.
Yes, and so the mom, who is a vet, brings home the orphaned skunk, and the little boy Bat takes care of it and raises, or starts raising the skunk. And he works with his teacher to find out how best to raise the skunk. And it's just a really good family experience and school experience. I'm really looking forward to reading it with my students in October.
Fantastic. And for those of you tuning in, I am going to have a list in the show notes about all these wonderful books that she's talking about, where you can find them. And I'll have a link to the Global Read Aloud as well, because I know they have a blog there that you shared with me. So I'll have that too.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and the Global Read Aloud is excellent because they have books for each grade level, or well, younger, middle grade, and older kids. So you can find a book that you can read during that month with your class and connect with other classrooms. So it's an excellent project.
And I can assume that this book is just a great introduction to the young kiddos about autism and how to deal with those behaviors. So is that what you're leaning towards as well, Barb?
Yes, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what my students have to say about this. Third graders are so empathetic and giving ideas on how to work with their classmates. I'm can't wait to read this book with them.
No, and it's fantastic because kids will always tell you what's on their mind. They may be
Yes.
sympathetic and all that, but there's one thing is that they will always be honest, even to a fault. So it's a great conversation starter, I say, and I think it's great. I really do. All right, so we're down two books. Anything else,
All
Barb?
right. Well, this is personally a very good book to me. It's called Dearest Children, a message inspired by Father Flanagan by Eli Hernandez. And it's about Father Flanagan, who founded Boys Town. And the author and illustrator is a parent from my school who
Nice.
also happens to work at Boys Town. And it's a beautiful picture book. And at the end of the book, he shows photos of Father Flanagan and
Oh,
then how it matched up with his illustrations and just beautiful, colorful photos. Father Flanagan welcomed every boy, and then now it's every girl. And to hear the history of how he started, and also Father Flanagan is now a servant of God and on the path to sainthood. So I just love sharing this book with my class. And what I did this year, I passed it on to 6 other Catholic schools, and they read the book, signed the book, and passed it on to another class.
wow.
And it was really fun. It was called Saint Book Trek.
Mm.
And yes, hashtag Saint Book Trek.
Of course.
Yes, hashtag. But it was really cool to share that message and to hear what the other students thought about him and to give the story of Father Flanagan. He's got a really interesting story and just how I didn't realize, when he started over 100 years ago, how, the kids lived on the street, and then for the girls, they could be like a servant that if they were, an orphan, they would turn into a servant, but the boys would live on the street. So he gave an opportunity for these children to have a life and all sorts of children. So, and there's no such thing as a bad kid, is what he says.
No,
So
which once again proves that we're welcoming all children, and that's a great conversation starter as to what do we do to try to welcome families to our churches or to our schools. I mean, it's a great conversation starter. So love that idea, Barb. Great book suggestion.
yes, yeah,
Great book.
pick it up and add that to your classroom. It's a beautiful picture book.
Yes, I'm kind of anxious, no pun intended, for you to talk about the next book. Is it Stanley Will Probably Be Fine?
Right, by Sally J. Pla. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce her name, but this was really good. This boy, Stanley, terrible social anxiety, and he fainted at a school assembly and was horribly embarrassed, but working with his counselor and also working with his gift of drawing, and he made up a superhero, and it helped him and then this counselor and some students, and he was able to take part in a scavenger hunt with this superhero alter ego. I just really enjoyed this book. A lovely family experience and activities that they helped him with his anxiety, and the school counselor was really instrumental in helping him overcome, well, I shouldn't say overcome his anxiety, but just give him tools to make his anxiety manageable.
Give them those strategies for success, as we say. Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. Wow, there's a couple more that I'd like for you to talk about. Let's talk about Caleb for a second.
Sure. Caleb and Kit by Beth Vibrell. And this boy has cystic fibrosis and so many medical um, things that he needs. He has to take the medicine. He has to use, is it a vibrator machine? I'm not quite sure what they do to get the mucus out of his lungs, but he was really had to really stay close to home for that. And so for him going out to experience the world was kind of a risk for him, but he was able to manage his cystic fibrosis, meeting other people. A lot of growth happened with him and his family, really sensitive to how other people did or did not treat his cystic fibrosis. So, and that was really important because his father and his father's new wife did not appreciate or take his cystic fibrosis seriously. So it was kind of, I was like yelling at the dad and the mother or the stepmom.
While you were reading it, obviously. You were
Yes. Or, well, I also do something called book snaps, where I take a picture of the page that upsets me and add like a Bitmoji or stars on it, and I'll say, oh, I can't believe the dad did this, and that's a way for me to annotate the book digitally,
Right.
which is it's really fun too.
I've seen it. Folks, did I tell you she was a great follower or what? I mean, you need to check this out. Last book that we have time to talk about, Defo.
Yes, El Defo, excellent. It's a graphic novel, which my students love. They loved it so much, they loved it to death. And I had to buy another copy. But it's an excellent story. The author at age 4 had a serious illness and lost her hearing. And this was in the 70s when the hearing aids were, very noticeable. She had this huge strap-on box. And how she dealt with it was making a superhero called El Defo. So that was an excellent book. And I remember talking with my students, because I've taught students with hearing losses, and they have this little tiny thing behind the ear, and I'll wear, a box to amplify. And we kind of looked at the pictures, and she laughed, says, wow, boy, have things changed.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Well, Barb, I mean, I would love to continue talking to you, but I think I'm going to have you back on if you don't mind so we can keep talking about books. Is that a deal?
Oh, you betcha. I would love that.
I know you would. But before you go, I always ask this of my guests, and I know that you've worked with them. So, Barb, what should Catholic special education look like to you?
Well, it should look like a loving, caring classroom community where children are welcomed, where teachers are supported, and to help all children learn.
I wish I can go back in time and be one of your students, Barb, because you sound like one of these fantastic teachers that just engages their learners and I can see the kids fighting over reading in your classroom and going to the classroom library. So I just want to thank you so much for being with me today, and I wish you nothing but prayers and blessings as you continue your ministry as a Catholic school teacher.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's it for this week. If this podcast was a blessing to you, can you please head over to iTunes and subscribe and give us a review or a rating? It really does help other Catholic educators find the podcast and use it as a resource. Thanks again to the amazing people at RCL Benziger for generously sponsoring this podcast. Check out their new resource for Catholic schools, Blessed Are We, Faith in Action, which enables teachers to share the love of Christ with children who have special needs. Visit rclbenziger.com to learn more. Join me again next time as we continue to advance God's kingdom by including all of God's children in Catholic schools and faith formation. Until then, this is Dr. Raul Escarpio. Thanks for listening, and may God bless your day.